Picture this. You're curled up on the couch, your cat settled warm against your chest, purring low and steady. Everything about this moment feels safe, familiar. The kind of quiet closeness you don't even think about anymore because it happens almost every day. Your hand moves slowly through their fur, and for a few seconds, the world feels perfectly still. And then, without warning, teeth sink into your skin. No growl, no hiss, no obvious buildup you can point to. One moment you were sharing something tender, and the next you're staring at your own hand, stunned, wondering what just happened. Did I do something wrong? Did I hurt them? Is my cat suddenly angry at me? Here's what almost nobody tells you. That bite has very little to do with anger, and the real explanation behind it is so much stranger than aggression, because in a quiet, almost backwards way, it might actually be one of the moments your cat trusts you the most. But to understand that, we need to walk through what's really happening beneath the surface, one layer at a time. Let's start with the biggest misconception people carry into moments like this, the belief that a cat suddenly snaps, that one second they're loving and the next they're hostile. But cats don't usually flip a switch like that. What looks sudden to us almost never is sudden to them. Cats are constantly communicating through their bodies long before any bite happens. A tail that starts flicking instead of resting still. Ears that rotate slightly outward or flatten just a touch. Skin that ripples along the back almost like a shiver. Whiskers pulling tighter against the face. These aren't random movements. They're early signals. Quiet ones. Easy to miss when you're focused on the warmth of the moment instead of the tiny shifts happening right in front of you. Most owners don't ignore these signs on purpose. They simply don't know to look for them because the moment feels too peaceful to expect a warning. But here's the question that really matters. If these signals exist, why did your cat want the affection in the first place, only to seem to reject it seconds later? That contradiction is exactly where the next part of the story begins. Because it isn't really about wanting less affection. It's about how affection is experienced. Think about how petting usually works. The strokes start slow, gentle, easy to enjoy. But if they continue, long, repetitive, unbroken, something changes for your cat that doesn't change the same way for you. Here's a simple way to feel it yourself. Imagine someone lightly tapping your shoulder. Once, twice, 10 times, 50 times. Nothing about the tap has changed. Same pressure, same rhythm. But at some point, your brain stops registering it as neutral and starts desperately wanting it to stop. That's roughly what's happening in your cat's nervous system during a long petting session. The same nerve pathways fire again and again, and instead of staying pleasant, the sensation can quietly intensify. What felt soothing a minute ago can start to feel like too much, even though your hand never sped up, never got rougher, never did anything wrong. This is called overstimulation, and it's one of the most common and most misunderstood reasons behind a sudden bite. It isn't punishment. It isn't rejection. It's closer to your cat saying, as clearly as they know how, this has reached its limit. But here's the strange part. If overstimulation were the whole story, every bite would happen after long, drawn-out petting sessions. It doesn't. Sometimes the bite lands within seconds, before any overload could have possibly built up. And that's where things get even more interesting. To understand this next layer, we have to stop thinking about the bite as rejection and start thinking about it as language, the same language cats use with each other. Watch two cats grooming one another and you'll often see a soft nip woven right into the affection. It's not a fight. It's part of how they connect, a gentle punctuation mark at the end of a tender exchange rather than the start of a hostile one. So when your cat nips you mid-cuddle, it may not be a warning shot at all. It might be your cat treating you exactly the way they'd treat another cat they trust. Context matters more than the bite itself. Was your cat relaxed just before it happened? Did their body stay loose or go rigid? Did their tail swish playfully or thump with tension? These details completely change what the moment actually means. A gentle love bite and a defensive warning bite can look almost identical to an untrained eye. Yet they come from two completely different emotional places. And this brings us to something that quietly reshapes everything you thought you knew about trust. Most people assume trust means an animal will never push back, never set a limit, never say no, but real trust doesn't work that way. Not for humans, and not for cats either. A cat that feels safe with you is a cat that feels safe enough to be honest with you. Fearful, insecure animals often mask discomfort. They freeze. They tolerate. They stay quiet because expressing a boundary feels riskier than simply enduring it. A cat that trusts you doesn't need to do that. When your cat is relaxed enough in your presence to communicate, that's enough through a small bite instead of fleeing or lashing out defensively. That can be a sign of real emotional security, not a breakdown of the relationship. Researchers who study feline behavior describe this kind of boundary setting as part of healthy emotional regulation. An animal that feels safe enough to express a limit because it isn't afraid of what happens next. It's not a guarantee, of course. Not every bite means this, but in the right context, it can reflect a surprising kind of closeness. Read that again for a moment, because it changes how that bite feels afterward. The very behavior that seemed like a rupture in trust might actually be evidence that the trust was there all along. So where does that leave you? If the bite isn't a rejection and it isn't a betrayal, what is it actually asking of you? It's asking you to listen a little earlier next time, to notice the tail before it flicks too fast, the ears before they turn, to learn your own cat's personal rhythm, because every cat carries their own affection threshold, their own point where closeness starts tipping into too much. Some cats can handle long, slow petting sessions. Others reach their limit in under a minute. Neither one loves you less. They just carry different sensitivities, the same way people do. The goal isn't to stop cuddling your cat out of fear of getting bitten. The goal is to end the interaction a little sooner, on your terms instead of theirs. A few gentle strokes, then a pause, watching how their body responds before continuing. Over time, this rhythm doesn't create distance. It builds something deeper, a kind of communication where your cat doesn't have to reach for a bite because you've already understood the signal before it got there. So let's go back to that quiet moment on the couch. The warmth, the purring, the sudden bite that once felt like confusion. Look at it now, and it tells a different story. Not one of anger and not one of broken trust, but one of a small, honest voice trying to be heard in the only language available in that moment. The next time your cat curls up beside you, you'll probably still stroke their fur, just like always. But maybe this time, you'll also notice the tiny flick of the tail, the slight turn of the ears, the quiet conversation that was always happening, right under your hand. Maybe the real question was never, why did my cat bite me? Maybe it was always, what was my cat trying to tell me? And now that you know how to listen, has your cat ever surprised you with a bite that, looking back, makes a lot more sense than it did before?